Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. Super stoked. We have a local legend on the podcast today, Mr. Steve Brown. I mean, this guy is, to say accomplished is an understatement. He was a All American, first team All American at Oregon State as a linebacker. He is in the Porterville High School Hall of Fame, and as you know, just a few years ago, he was nominated for the College Football Hall of Fame.
Still is.
Yeah, it still is. He's kind of in the waiting, I think he talked about, and you guys will hear kind of some of that conversation on the podcast. But super accomplished, hard worker. Another guy from Poplar. They just keep coming. You know, we talked about weightlifting, fitness. I know Zach's got some really great stories that he's gonna kind of talk about on the podcast, but accomplished guy, and in order to be nominated on the ballot for the College Hall of Fame, you have to be a first team All American. Right. So you go look in the NFL, Tom Brady and all these guys, those guys they're not even eligible for those types of Hall of Fame awards. So Steve Brown is, and it was a great conversation, Zach.
Yeah, it was an incredible conversation. He doesn't know this, but I will tell him in due time that he was a huge inspiration as to what I am doing now. His weight room was the first weight room that sparked that flame for me to make who I am today. This guy, please take note of what he says that help him take his game to the next level. This guy, he's an amazing man, not just on the field, but off the field as well, inspiring thousands of kids on that football field. So I'm excited to do this one with him.
Yeah, the guy is still coaching today and over in the Central Coast. You know, he was like ahead of his time too with weightlifting back in 70s, 80s, things like that. Before college, I mean, this was before Oregon State. He started lifting when no one else was really lifting weights back then. You know, this is you go look at the golden age of like bodybuilding, kind of when it started, like to get big with Arnold and all these guys, you know, in the golden era, the mecca of it all. And Steve Brown was lifting back then and kind of was ahead of his time in a lot of ways.
Yep,
so
paved the way for many.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know, Zach, you guys talk about his weight room and that whole
it's iconic, man.
What do they call it? What did Jim Short call it? I can't remember, the Motown or something.
Something like that.
Yeah, something like that. I can't remember. But anyways, you know, a lot of people worked out there. I know Zach would go with Adrian, right? When he would let you.
Mm-hmm.
So
definitely some good times right there. Memorable times for sure.
So it was a pleasure. It's an honor to hear from these local greats, these legends. Not even a local legend. I mean, he is, but he's just a, you know, renowned legend up in Oregon and California, everywhere else. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Steve Brown to the podcast. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the podcast. Today we have an amazing person. I'm very excited to have him on, Mr. Steve Brown. He is in the Oregon State Hall of Fame, Porterville High School Hall of Fame. He was a linebacker at Oregon State. What year, Steve?
I started playing at Oregon State in 69.
69.
Finished in 72, graduated in 73.
So thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today on this Wednesday.
Glad to do it.
Super excited. I know, Zach, you've been excited about this one.
Yeah, this one's it's an honor, Steve. It's an honor to have you next.
Known your family a long time.
Yeah. So on the beginning of every podcast we have, we start off with what we call the mental minute, just to get it going. You know, get the thoughts and get the thinking process start going. Okay. So the first question on the mental minute is, in your opinion, what's your definition of success?
Well, I think it's just, you know, knowing who you are, you know, getting that figured out, knowing the direction you want to go, and, you know, then having the fortitude to stick with that. You know, it's not easy. Sometimes, you know, we get started into things and we, you know, there was a time even at Oregon State when I thought I wanted to come home.
Wow.
At the beginning of my sophomore year, I was thinking about maybe, you know, hoping to redshirt. I was disappointed, you know. I'd gone through spring practice and I was a backup. I was a second teamer, and I didn't know what that meant. Being a sophomore and being a second teamer was probably a pretty good deal when you're playing a conference like the Pac-8. But I wanted to be a starter. I wanted this. I wanted that, and I needed to grow up a little bit and realize, that on a team sport, and especially big-time football, you got to have a role. And my role was to be a great special teamer and to be there, to be ready, like Coach Andros told me later. He said, you got to be ready, Brownie. That's what Coach called me. Everybody at Oregon State, they don't call me Steve Brown. It's always Brownie. So anyway, Coach said you got to be ready when we need you. When the team needs you, you be there. And so I took that to heart, and so I stayed around, and I think it was the second game that we played that year was up in Portland. Pretty sure, yeah, it was Portland, and we were playing, who were we playing? It was a Big Ten team. Oh, Iowa. Yeah, we were playing against Iowa, and sure enough, opening play, second half, Butch Wicks, good friend of mine, Butch, who was ahead of me at that time, he was a redshirt junior. Butch went down with a knee. And I was just sitting on the bench. I wasn't even paying attention to the game. I was feeling sorry for myself and thinking I should be the starter, whatever. Anyway, Coach Andros just runs over the bench and goes, okay, Brownie, this is it. This is what we talked about. You got to get in there and get the job done. So I got my shot to break in, and then from that point on, I was a starter for the rest of my career. So
made it count. That one moment you made it count.
And it took a lot of effort to build up to that. Stay true to your goals and work hard, and don't get discouraged. Have patience. It'll come. The opportunity will come.
Steve, you were an All American linebacker. You just an all around athlete. What do you think were the strengths that made you such a great athlete?
Well, there's so many. That question is really hard to answer for me because there were so many variables. I mean, my family was really supportive. I had two older brothers that have been great athletes. In fact, I thought my oldest brother, Larry, was probably the best athlete in the whole family. Tragedy struck him, his junior year when he blew out a knee playing baseball on a slide into home plate. And he never really got recovered from that because at that time they didn't have the surgeries to fix ACLs like they do now. But just being around those guys, watching how competitive they were and, growing up with them, and then, being in a town like Porterville, it was always really important for us to prove ourselves. That's what you're always wanting to do, that I can do this, I can get the job done. I want to strive to be the best I can. So I think that comes from family. That comes from upbringing. That comes from your parents, And if they instill that in you and the right way to achieve it, you've really you've jumped over the biggest hurdle, I think, on your pathway to success. It's just being from a good family, and sometimes it's tough with families today. We have situations where there's kids that they don't have both parents at home. That's a one parent situation, and it becomes very difficult for them. But man, if you can focus on that and just take it from them, what it takes to be successful. And I was very, very fortunate. I had a very great family support system. So that and my wife, Kathy. Yeah. I mean, Kathy and I met in high school when she was a freshman. And I don't know, we were friends before we ever started dating. And then we started dating, and we went together all through high school. And then, we got married when I was a sophomore, and after the sophomore season, my first year in college, second year in college. So we've been together over 51 years now.
Wow. Ooh, congratulations.
Yeah, wow. Thanks. But Kathy was tremendous support for me, always.
So the relationships are a big deal as an athlete.
Big deal.
For sure.
Kathy's family, her mom and dad, Bob and Kay Reisig, were just terrific.
Yeah.
Very supportive.
So you have now, how many years have you been coaching now?
Well, I haven't stopped coaching. When I finished playing, I was up in Canada with the Calgary Stampeders, and I finished with those guys. I knew that career was kind of coming to an end because of injuries, that some of these injuries and the injuries you don't come back from. You lose a step and you're done. That's it. You can't really compete at that highest level anymore. Right. So I said, okay, I'm going to try to coach. And I went back to Oregon State, and I finished my credential, and I was working as a grad assistant for the Beavers, and Coach Andros says, "Hey, Brownie," told me one day, "I got a friend at Sacramento State that they need a freshman coach. What do you think? You want to go down there and work for Ray Clemens?" And I go, "Hey, why not?" So I went down to Sacramento, met with Ray, the head coach at Sacramento State at the time, and he needed a freshman head coach, and I spent 6 months recruiting that fall team that we would have coming in, in August. And then it just wasn't for my family and for Kathy, and Heather was about a year old then.
Oh, wow.
So it just didn't seem like it was going to work out. There comes a point where in coaching, you have to either have a wife and family that are willing to follow you and accept that you're going to be gone all the time. You're not going to be there. During the football season, they don't see you.
Right.
And if you've got a wife and family that can do that,
support it.
Yeah, it's tough. It's a really tough thing. And I think when you begin to see into the personal lives of some of these coaches, what they've had to, endure, and their families, what the support they've had to give them. We talked about it, and Kathy wasn't real excited about it. She said, "Yeah, I don't know where I'm going to go from here, Kathy. If I do a good job for Ray, maybe I move on to, where I want to end up is in the Pac-10 that time, or the Pac-8. It became the Pac-10. Now it's the Pac-12. But I said, that's where I really want to go. That's where I want to end up, and we may be moving a lot." And she said, "I don't know if that's for me." So I had been talking with her dad anyway about. He's getting older and wanted someone to come back and help with his company, Ryzik Shoes. They had all these shoe stores all over the place.
Yeah.
I think at that time they had 9 across the valley and over the coast. But anyway, we decided to come home. I came back to Porterville, and we bought a house. I went to work for the company and the family business, and stayed there till I was about 40 years old. Worked in there almost 20 years. So.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I ended up back at Porterville. But during that whole period of time, I never stopped coaching, whether it was Pop Warner,
right,
or whether it was high school, or whether it was college. I was always coaching.
You've been at every level.
I've been at every level, and it's been a great learning experience for me.
Absolutely. I mean, thousands and thousands of kids have gone under you, right?
Yeah, we were just talking about Charlie Casale, who used to be the great Mount Whitney coach. I mean, Charlie Casale. His knowledge on being able to throw the football and what he knew about the passing game, most of this stuff came out of Canada in the original, passing family, people that knew how to pass the ball. And most of it came out of the Canadian Football League. And then you get into this West Coast offense and, all these different run and shoots and all these different offenses that came along. Well, Charlie was the guy who brought all that information and knowledge to the Valley. Mm-hmm. And Mount Whitney, if you look back when Charlie was there, I mean, they were beating people, 65-0. I mean, they could really sling the ball, and that's what we were talking about earlier. Robert, the new head coach at Morro Bay,
right?
Robert played for Coach Casale, and Coach Casale now is assistant coach in Cambria. So,
right.
And he's 80. He's in his 80s. So I guess you never stop coaching.
Yeah, you get that bug.
Yeah, and the knowledge stays. I mean,
right.
What do you want to talk about? What kind of defense you think you're going to be facing? And you've kind of seen it all. You've talked about it, drawn it up, been in meetings, talked, over the years. So that knowledge is good to have on a staff.
Absolutely.
So,
yep.
Steve, you've coached many decades, and you continue to coach today. So you've seen a big transition of athletes. What do you think one of the biggest, challenges that athletes are facing today?
Well, I think it's distractions myself. I think there's a lot more distractions that kids have to face, and then
cell phones.
Oh,
yeah, social media.
Allowing cell phones into the high schools, and that's a whole different topic, but was probably the worst thing that ever happened. But getting past that, it's kids have a lot more choices. They're struggling and trying to do the best they can in several different sports, and that can either be a blessing or, it can be a curse. Picking out something that you're really good at and being able to know that's what I want to do and then focusing on that, that's great. That's where you should be probably. It's what I did. And then you play the other sports too.
Right.
I remember from football, we'd go from football to basketball when I was in high school. And I love playing, especially for Ron Cavern. What a great coach. And the great players I played with. And so going to baseball with Coach Fredericks, that was just a normal transition. Mm-hmm. But my focus was always football. I mean, nobody ever trained with weights to play basketball in high school in 1967. I guarantee you. But I did.
Yeah.
And Coach Cavern, it was great because after practice, I'd want to go in. We had one universal machine. I mean, I look around this gym and you got everything in the world, but they had one little universal machine. No dumbbells, nothing else, but one little universal machine. And I'd want to go in there and work out.
Yeah.
And Coach Cavern would stay with me. He'd open it up, say, okay, go ahead. And he'd go in his office and do something. And I'd work out for 35, 45 minutes after practice. And so I got to stay on the weights during basketball season. And same thing like with Coach Fredericks. No problem. You want to lift and everything, we'll get you in there and get it done. And
yeah, I remember your garage. I remember when Adrian wanted to go work out with Zach Brown. And I even remember you taking your football players when you're at Granite Hills. I was telling Blaine, all right, lunges up the hill.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we had a great location there, man. I could run those guys.
Brutal. It was brutal.
Well, Rudy Ramirez.
Yeah.
Rudy's a professional bodybuilder.
Yep.
And I think that was probably when he got bit.
Mm-hmm.
So when he was training with us during those summer months. We called them the off months, but I said, okay, you guys think you're going to take a few days off? Nah, you're going to come to my gym.
It was the first time I was telling you, it was the first time I've ever seen 100-pound plates.
Oh, yeah.
On the leg press.
Yeah.
Caught me by surprise.
Yeah, those kids they really worked hard. Those kids at Granite, when JB and I were coaching together up there and with the other coaches, Coach Bowser, who's over at Strathmore now, did a great job. Coach Stoddard, all those guys that were working with them. Those kids were really dedicated and they really bought into what JB was talking about, his philosophy. And
sure,
Jeff's a principal now, at Harmony High School, but does a great job. But man, when he decided to leave coaching, I think they lost a great one because he was an excellent coach. Of course, he played at USC, been a grad assistant there. He'd been at St. Mary's, he'd been in San Antonio, he'd been at different places, was kind of prepping, moving up the line. And then as fate would have it, he ended up at Granite Hills High School. And, man, we had a great time putting that together. So kids were real successful too.
That's awesome.
So, let's take it back now. Let's take it back. Let's talk about Steve Brownie childhood. Okay. Let's talk about the childhood. How was that dynamic for you? You Poplar, right?
Yeah.
Tell us about that. Tell us about your childhood.
Well, we lived in Poplar for a short time. My dad had taken over the Texaco station across the street from the ballpark. Right. If you've been through Poplar, you know where the ballpark is. And right across the street used to be the Texaco station and my dad's garage. And he had taken that over from his brother, Tommy. And he worked that for a few years. So we lived in Poplar. Pleasant View Elementary School. Mm-hmm. The kids that went to Pleasant View, a lot of us are still in touch today, like with Tony Barcelos, Deanna Overholt, people like that. The Sturgeons lived out there, the Callisons, old-time Porterville folks that came from that era and that era. A lot of farm boys, a lot of big, strong kids that worked in the fields in the summer, and their folks, were farm labor workers too. And so that was normal for us to do. And so growing up in Poplar was, I'm not going to say it wasn't a challenge because it kind of was. It was a tough place.
Yeah.
There were actually afternoons where you had to fight your way home from the bus stop.
That's what Jim was telling us.
Yeah. And that was good. Yeah, I remember Jimmy and Dusty Stull and Jeff. They all went to high school together. Their wrestling, when we were talking about the Poplar Punch, they called themselves. Yeah, Drew Williams loved those guys. Yeah. But it wasn't easy, but I never saw it as being difficult. And Kathy and I have talked about this because my wife actually, came from a whole different kind of environment, but, it wasn't important because, we had a great home, great family. I had two older brothers that I could watch, and I idolized both of them, Mike and Larry. And, I just wanted to do what they did and even do it better. And I kind of think that's where Jeff came from. And then of course, Bill was a tremendous athlete too in high school, great baseball player. Yeah. But he was a little bit on the smaller side, so he didn't really get the opportunities in college. But yeah, that upbringing, the toughness of the neighborhood, the kids, they were tough kids. And
molded you a little bit.
It did. You have to go out and spend 8 to 10 hours in the grape field swamping grapes, and that's what we did for every summer. For 5 summers, I did that for Mr. Bert Barra. His son, Al Barra, of course, the dentist here in town. The Barra family's great family, old town Porterville. But working for Bert and Mary Barra really gave me, I look forward to it because, man, I'd get in shape for football. You go out there, it's 105 degrees out there, and you're working down, you're following a diesel propelled tractor pulling a trailer, and you're loading those 50-pound crates, onto a trailer.
Any way to get a workout in.
Oh man, yeah. You knew you had a workout. And we usually spent the whole month of August working for Bert until football started. So we would go from the cotton fields to the grape vineyards, and it got you ready.
Yeah, no stranger to hard work, that's for sure.
And that's what it takes. You want to have that work ethic, and we certainly had that, watching my parents and what they did, and my two older brothers, and I kind of had the opportunity to show, Bill and Jeff, this is how we do it. Mm-hmm. And that was a real fun thing.
Yeah, I mean, picking cotton and going to the grape vineyards, that just teaches you that work ethic, right? And then you show up to football practice, and you've already been working.
Fun.
That's fun part.
Right there, yeah.
I never got tired.
Yeah.
Got thirsty sometimes.
Yeah, they couldn't work you hard enough.
No water, here's a salt tablet. But the rest of the time, I thought football was just a blast. Yeah. It was fun to be there. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed it, especially the contact. Because I couldn't find anybody on the football team that hit harder than my brothers did. Would they? We'd play tackle football in the front yard, man. It was a war.
And you got to go home with them.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that was fun. But yeah, I think that prepped us, all that hard work. And today you talk to kids about picking cotton. What is that?
Right.
Even chopping cotton. What was that about?
Yeah.
And you got to explain it to them. Then that you're really living in a different decade. So
like every kid should have like a tough summer job, right? It'll teach them work ethic, and man,
absolutely,
that's some of the best life lessons you could get.
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't think there's anything that replaces that. I think that work ethic and what we talked about earlier, knowing what your goals were. I knew probably from the time I was 5th or 6th grade at Pleasant View, I saw a football game on TV. We'd just gotten a TV, so I was watching a football game on Saturday. It was Oregon State and USC. And I think it was the 66 or 67 game. And I knew right then, I didn't know I was going to Oregon State, but I knew I wanted to be a college football player.
Yeah.
I saw that, and I saw all those people in that Coliseum, and I go, wow, that's what I want to do. Mm-hmm. What do I have to do that?
And how what age were you at this time?
I'm going to guess about maybe 10.
Wow.
Around 10 years old, maybe 12. I don't remember exactly, but I know that's when it happened. I remember watching the game, the first college game I'd ever seen on a television, and I thought, wow, that's what I want to do.
That's got to be you, huh?
Yeah, that's me. I want to go there. And, I want to mention this real quickly. If it hadn't have been for Elizabeth Moore, Mrs. Moore was a counselor at Porterville High School. And Mrs. Moore was, she was kind of like the unsinkable Molly Brown character. Uh-huh. She was a rough, tough gal who talked to kids about, hey, you got to get this done and that done. And she was just
a hammer.
She was a hammer, but she was such a loving person. And I remember getting called out of class one day in my junior year. And I said, you have to go up to counseling. You have to see Mrs. Moore. And I go, I don't want to see Mrs. Moore. I know she had a reputation, that she'd get after you sometimes. And so I walked in, I sat down, and boy, she was just right at me. She goes, hey, what are you going to do? What could you possibly do after high school? And I go, what do you mean? She goes, do you want to go on and play? And I go, yeah, I want to play college football. You're never going to go to college. Look at your grades. No,
she kept it real.
Right. She kept it real, man. She jumped in there and she said, look, this is what you got to do. And we started working on that my junior year. And my grades went up, got a lot better. I took it a lot more seriously. Most kids can do the work. It's just, where's their state of mind? I love playing the sports, but I didn't want to, spend all that hard work in a classroom. But I did, and thank goodness it all worked out. But it wouldn't have happened without Elizabeth Moore.
Yeah, constructive criticism can be a blessing.
Great counselors. She reminds me a lot of my sister-in-law, Cindy. Give a shout out to Cindy. Cindy's she runs the Pathways program here at Porterville Unified, and Cindy's just a go-getter, man. Yeah. And that's Mrs. Moore. She's that kind of person, loving, caring, but man, we got to get you guys going. Yeah, love that.
So, what was that process from? I guess you getting your grades up and all that stuff, and then eventually playing your high school career, graduating high school, and getting recruited to go play at the next level.
And that was kind of interesting. Back in those days, you could only have 3 trips. And at that time, as I was, prepping myself academically to take the SATs and all that, we were in the basketball season, and I had offers from Cal Berkeley, UCLA, University of Colorado, Oregon State, Washington. I mean, there was so many schools.
Mm-hmm.
I really didn't know what to do. So, of course, I went talked to Mrs. Moore, and she was the one who kind of pointed me at Oregon State. And I think the reason she did is because we'd have 2 kids from Porterville High that had gone there before me. Mark Gartung, who turned out to be a great player for them, and Van Smith, who was played with my oldest brother, Larry. I knew Van. And they had done really well at OSU. And she said, I think that's going to be a good one. So you want to go there for sure. Check that one out. And then she said, go to the U of O. Go to the University of Oregon. Because at that time, they were recruiting, some unknowns like Dan Fouts.
Hall of Famer.
Yeah. They were recruiting some great players. Greg Speck. I mean, all these guys went on to play in the NFL. So go there. And then, the third one's your choice. So I really never went on a third. I was going to go to the University of Colorado and visit, which is where Richard Bland, who was 1 year under me, was our quarterback in high school. Richard ended up going to Colorado because they saw him on film when they were looking at me. So the next year, I didn't go, but they got Richard, and he ended up at University of Colorado, and he's still there. He's in Colorado, in Boulder. He's a lawyer now.
Nice.
That's neat.
Yeah, great guy.
Yeah.
Oh, Bland family, tremendous family.
Yeah.
Old-time Porterville people. But, yeah, Richard Bland, what a guy.
Yeah. You mentioned your brothers and Cindy, as people who you looked up to and stuff like that. Outside of them, who else were your role models growing up?
I'd have to say just athletes, watching athletes that played the game. I'm still a Cleveland Brown fan. I love watching Jim Brown play football. I thought it was incredible.
What did you think of the movie?
Oh, well, they don't cover everything. I've read every piece of material there is on Jim Brown, but, I thought he was the greatest football player in my mind that's ever played the game.
Wow.
I mean, there's been some great ones, but 9 years in a row, lead the NFL in rushing, and to retire and still be able to walk. Because when you look at some of those guys today that, they're in their 40s and early 50s, and some of them, they've had joint injuries and all the surgeries and everything. It gets real difficult.
Yeah.
Later on in life. But I think Jim did it right. I think, he 9 years on top and said, that's it. I'm done. I'm going to do something else. But that's because he was focused on what he wanted to do. And he just had made a decision that I've done this. I've been to the top. I've done the best that you can do. So I'm going to move on. So he moved on to Hollywood and different things, making movies. And he was an idol. Mickey Mantle in baseball.
Oh, yeah.
Willie Mays. Oh, I thought Willie Mays was incredible. I used to listen to all the Giants games when I was a little kid. I had taken a radio out of an old DeSoto my dad had at the garage, and I'd put it into a steel container, and I hooked it up to a battery. And I used to listen to the Giants games. And I'd be out front, and then we had a Chinaberry tree with a sawed-off half baseball bat. And the Giants would be playing, and I'd be picking up those Chinaberries and hitting them with the bat. A little about this big,
Yeah.
Anyway, I think that had a lot to do with helping me become a good baseball player. I was okay, but not as good as Mike or of course, Jeff or Bill were. And Larry was a tremendous baseball player. I was probably the least talented baseball player, but those were the guys that I idolized.
Right.
Those are 3 of them, so that I can think of right now. There were probably a lot more, but Jim Brown.
Those are good ones.
Yeah.
Those are some good ones.
Mickey Mantle was incredible. A lot of people don't remember Mantle when he was young and healthy. Most people saw him later on in his career, like when he was hitting 60 home runs or 59 home runs, or was it 58 or 15? I can't remember. But Roger Maris hit 60 that year, and they were having the home run, the M&M boys.
Right.
Well, they don't remember the younger Mickey Mantle. That guy could run like a deer. You know how he hurt himself, how he hurt his knee? He's chasing a fly in Yankee Stadium and stepped into a sprinkler. It was a sprinkler hole. and
No kidding.
and tore his ACL.
Really?
No kidding.
Yeah, that according to his biography, that's what happened. And they really didn't have the technology, the science, the medical knowledge to be able to really fix them like they do now.
Right.
So now they take a cadaver one and replace the ligament.
Yeah, now the recovery is so quick.
Oh, yeah. They got guys. When I had my knees done, I had both my knees replaced. I was up and walking the same day.
That's crazy.
Yeah, in a walker. And I was going home on the airplane within 3.
Isn't that amazing?
That's truly amazing. Truly amazing.
And hundreds of years ago, if your knees go bad, I mean, you're not going to probably live very long after that.
Well, most of the great stories, and I read a lot of athlete stories, biographies. Most of them, it ended up being an injury that took them out.
Yeah.
Yep.
So because they just didn't have the knowledge to be able to fix those things back then. But yeah, those were the guys I idolized. There were others, but
You played linebacker in college. Did you play linebacker in high school? Or you kind of play everything in high school?
well, Coach Otto, I didn't mention Coach Otto, but Bob Otto was a big influence in my life. A great, great coach. He's the one who introduced the veer here in the Valley.
veer, okay.
Nobody ran the option until he brought it to Porterville, and he taught it to us. He coached the B program at Porterville High School, and then when Coach Ennis left, who was another great influence on me, Sim Ennis, when he left to go to Porterville College, Bob Otto took over. So I played my junior and senior year for him, and he ran the veer, and that's what Richard Bland was fantastic at being able to drop that ball in a fullback's gut and just ride him to the line, and it's like, people just gravitated to that, and then boy, he'd pull that ball out and around the corner, he'd go and then have the toss, and we had guys like Buzz Bradley and Gary Hill and guys like that, pitchman. So some good, tough, fast guys out there. But yeah, Coach Otto was a genius on running the veer. So he's the guy who brought that offense. Nobody ran it here in the Valley until they didn't even seen it.
Right.
In fact, my junior year when we were getting ready to play our opener, Tulare Western, Coach Otto. We only had like 3 plays. It was either a give, a keep, or a pitch. We didn't even throw the ball.
Keep it
Are we going to
simple.
throw the ball this year? Well, maybe.
We'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah.
But yeah, we had 3 plays. That was it.
That's
And
incredible.
we ended up beating them like 24-0. So
Right.
It worked.
it worked.
Yeah.
You talk basketball, baseball, football.
Yeah.
When did you first find that first, like you said, this is it. I'm a football guy. This is what I'm going to do. When did you first find that first love for football?
It was probably after that game that I watched, that first football game, college game I got to watch on TV. The first thing I did, I don't know how this really came to be. I've thought about this often, how I ended up starting collecting weights. But weight training is something relatively new. When you look back on other things that have been done, I mean, of course, they look at what you guys do now with all the equipment and all the things you guys can train and do with people. And back then, in my time in high school, nobody lifted weights.
So you were different. You were doing something different.
I was doing something really different.
Yeah.
And I think it started after I got a knee injury in a Tulare game my sophomore year. And to get me ready, I didn't play basketball or baseball that year. I spent the time after school. Coach Ennis arranged for me to be driven over to Porterville College, and Nick Nelson was there, Dr. Nelson, and Dr. Nelson introduced me to some of the PC guys that were weightlifters, and a guy by the name of Bobby Crystal, Porterville High graduate, and Bobby was being a bodybuilder, learning how to be a bodybuilder. So Bobby took me around and started teaching me how to do leg lifts and extensions and curls and how to get that knee back in shape. And then we got into, doing chest workout and shoulder workouts. And so he kind of was teaching me about weights. And then once that had started, I got bit by that bug. I told my dad, I just came up to my dad, hey, Dad, when it's my birthday, and that's those special days, Christmas, birthdays.
What he said.
Instead of buying me something that I don't really need or forget about in 2 weeks, buy me weights. I'm going to start a weight collection. So my dad bought me a bench and a bar with 110 pounds and a couple of dumbbells when I was my sophomore year in high school. And I started lifting. And pretty soon it grew and grew and grew. And then it eventually grew into that weight room you're talking about that I had up on Scenic Heights at the house. Yeah. So, yeah, it was there's a bug that you get bit by, just like football or basketball or baseball, and it's called weight training bug. And the guys who got into that were the ones who I think really became successful. Yeah, they excelled. They became really successful because it was an edge that not everybody had. Not everybody was doing it.
Right. When did you grow? Like, when was your first growth spurt?
I was 6 feet tall and 185 pounds in the 8th grade.
Holy smokes, man! I was 5'7",
I know,
$130. Wow.
I got up to about in college. I played. I think I was 6'4", 250, but I ran a 4.85.
Wow.
So I could run okay for a big linebacker.
Yeah.
And at Oregon State, that fit their plan perfectly because middle linebacker was just a hole plugger.
Right.
You know, you got 4 defensive linemen, 2 defensive end. That's 6 guys on the line the whole time, you know, and then you only have 2 linebackers and a 3 deep. But the middle linebacker was pretty much protected so he could fill those holes. And that's why I ended up being on so many tackles.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I did.
So, I mean, lifting weights early, like you were ahead of your time in a lot of ways, right?
Absolutely.
I didn't. There was nobody that I could not physically handle.
Yeah.
Strength-wise.
Yeah, you were revolutionary in that way and ahead of your time. So now, kind of flash forwarding a little bit, you know, you're kind of your senior year at Porterville High School, you kind of just mentioned how you got 3 visits, which is way different today. It's madness today.
Yeah.
But what's that transition going to Oregon State and I guess that first year? What's that whole experience like for you?
It was becoming acclimated to the university or college atmosphere. It's just a totally different thing than high school or anything that I experienced. I stayed in the dorm the first semester, and then the second semester I moved into a frat house. I was going to pledge Phi Delta Theta fraternity, and I didn't really like that either. I mean, it was okay, but I needed more freedom, so I ended up just apartment living. And basically when that happens, you end up in an apartment complex full of college kids.
Yeah.
And the greatest thing there that you want to do is everybody wants to party. You know, weekends are parties. That's what they do in college. You learn how to socialize and party. And I really wasn't into that.
Weight room.
Yeah, I was going to the weight room.
Yeah.
And my best friend in college was Steve DeAntremont. Probably doesn't ring anybody's bell, but Steve DeAntremont was a 2-time NCAA hammer throw champ.
Wow.
He was a teammate with Tim Vollmer, the 3rd guy on our Munich 1972 Olympic team. I mean, these guys were Olympian type athletes,
right? And
all they did was train.
This is your roommate.
This is not roommate, but he was my neighbor.
Oh, okay.
My wife, Kathy, we didn't like the apartment scene where all the other college lives, so we looked kind of like for a little duplex. And we found one, and we lived downstairs. And Steve and Mary Lee, he was married, they lived upstairs. And for 2.5, 3 years, I was working out with Tim and Steve, and I met some of the, I guess you would call them the giants of track and field way back when.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it was pretty cool to
worked
meet a
out
guy
great,
like Al Order. I mean, I got to meet Al Order. Mac Wilkins, the Olympian discus thrower for the United States. He was from the U of O. Steve Prefontaine.
Yeah.
Prefontaine. All these track guys. They were my friend. That's who I hung out with. I didn't really hang out too many football guys. But the track guys, like, I remember Steve would come home from a track meet on Saturdays, and he'd get back into town late at night, and he'd come, let's go, weight room. It'd be 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah, those track guys are a different breed for sure.
Oh, yeah. And Steve Munson, who was a distance guy on the track team, they were all, those were my friends. I'd spent more time in the track locker room in the offseason than I did in the football locker room.
But it worked. It worked.
I think that was a key.
That circle.
Yeah. And those guys were truly dedicated. So that's kind of how that kind of went.
So you mentioned, Kathy was up there at Oregon State with you?
Oh, yeah. We got married in March 20th of 71, and that's my junior year football. So we came around and went to our junior year, and she was there with me. Kathy, that's kind of a funny story too. But poor Kathy, she had trained as a hygienist, dental hygiene assistant and all that.
Yeah.
She went to school for that because we were planning to get married. So she wanted to be able to work, and I'd go to school, and she couldn't find a job. And it was getting kind of tough on us financially, even though we probably could have, I'm sure that parents would have kicked in, but we wanted to do it on our own. So anyway, long story short, I went to Coach Andrews, and I said, Coach, I may have to leave school. My wife can't find a job, and we really need for her to work and, to stay solvent, economically, and for me to play football here. Well, the very next week, Kathy had a job as a bank teller at Citizens Bank. So
it's connections.
That was kind of nice. And she worked there for about 6 months until she finally found a job as a dental assistant.
Nice.
So
very cool.
And then that's how she worked at for a couple of years while we were in school.
Nice.
Yeah, it worked.
Yeah, no, it definitely did.
We didn't have money to buy a pizza, but we paid our bills and we were happy. It was
yeah.
good.
So what did you eat? I'm kind of curious now that you bring pizza. Like, what was the nutrition back then for you?
Kathy was a great cook, so she did a lot of vegetables. We didn't have a lot of money for meat, but when we did, we did. Back then, a lot of college students, there was a program that was sponsored by the what was it called back then? The USDA, and they would hand out there would be giant containers of peanut butter and different things that you could get as a student you were kind of strapped financially, and those supplemented.
Yeah,
and we were able to get by on that.
No kidding.
Yeah, it was tough. It was really tough, but the focus then was play football, do a great job, and then hopefully get drafted.
Right.
And then, you have some money finally.
Well, during your time at Oregon, you were an All-American.
I was lucky.
What did that mean to you, receiving that accomplishment?
Well, what it did is it kind of put a spotlight on you, so people were looking at you, so you knew if you performed well, you would have a chance when the pro draft came around. Things were different back then. Now it's a huge production, and all these guys, like during the first few days of draft, the guys come on and the commissioner introduces them, and it's a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Back then it was not like that. It was just you had 2 days and you got drafted, but
technology changed the game.
Yeah, it totally changed, game changer. So. But yeah, I enjoyed that part of it. During the preseason, my senior year, I got to go to Chicago. I was on the Playboy All-American team, and I got to meet up with some of the Heisman Trophy winner that year was Johnny Rodgers from Nebraska and Rich Glover, and so I got to meet a lot of really great football players, Terry Metcalf, and we had a good weekend there. It was fun. Took a lot of pictures. Bob Devaney, the head coach at Nebraska, was the coach of the year. So we went to, I remember we went to Soldier Field, and we had a big photo session. And Sunday morning, we got in there on Friday night, and then Saturday night was we actually got to go to the Playboy Club.
No kidding.
Yeah, they entertained us there. And then Sunday morning, we went to Soldier Field, took all the pictures, and everybody split after that. So, but yeah, that was a great honor. That was fun. And then postseason, the East-West Shrine game.
Mm-hmm.
I was a co-captain for the West team in that, and then the Hula Bowl.
Yeah,
in Hawaii, I was also a co-captain of that. And then the one I really enjoyed was in June or July, I can't remember. It was in Lubbock, Texas. It was the coaches All-American game, which coaches picked the players. So you saw some different.
Sure,
it wasn't just politics involved, or the SID, the sports information director, didn't pick the guy. It was picked by coaches, and they picked players. Man, that was a great game. There was some really great football players.
You're also on the ballot for the Hall of Fame for the NCAA, right?
Right. Yeah, I got nominated a couple of years ago by Oregon State. There's a regional ballot that's cast, and if you make it past that, then you go to the national level. And I'm sitting there with that group right now. So. It could happen. I mean, I suppose if a bunch of people got together and started writing letters to the the coaches, the Football Hall of Fame, College Football Hall of Fame, maybe they would reconsider. But at that point, you're selected by sports casters, coaching staffs, and that kind of stuff, and most of those votes are on the East Coast. So you see a lot of SEC guys, a lot of Big Ten guys.
Little bias.
Yeah, it's just where the votes are.
Sure.
I know that not too long ago I received a letter from our SID, who's the SID today, telling me, hey, this is where it's at and this is what's going on. So we'll just hope for the best. And
time will tell.
Well, your stats count too.
Yeah.
I know that I'm still the record holder for tackles at Oregon State.
Really?
All these years later. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
How many tackles do you?
It's like 415
for career.
Yeah, career, and it was a
tackles.
3-year career.
3-year
wow.
career.
And you hold the record 3 years.
Still.
Yeah,
Wow.
well, most guys are playing 4 now.
4,
Remember
yeah.
how that happened with
If not,
Marshall.
with the grad assistant or grad transfers, all that stuff now. You guys
So
playing
these-
5.
Yeah, these guys end up with having more time to score more tackles. But yeah, I still have that record, and hopefully that'll hold up. And then interceptions, I was lucky with too. If you count all the interceptions, it ended up being like 17 for a career. My best season was my junior year, and it was 8. So I was actually in the leaderboard for the nation.
No kid.
For most of the year, yeah.
Wow.
It was a great honor. It was great. I got 3 of those passes picked off when we played Stanford. And Don Bunce had a bad afternoon or something. I don't know what was going on. But he found me 3 times. Actually 4, but they don't count interceptions in the end zone on PATs. We did,
Yeah.
but not at the national level.
Right. So you talked about lifting weights and being ahead of your time, Steve. What separated you from others? Like, what separated you to become an All-American? What was that like, just their day-to-day? What made you different?
Just the desire and the willingness to train, to get up every morning and, go do the work.
Routine's not easy.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
yeah. I admire people today who work out at gyms on a consistent level because, you could have a good day at work, a bad day at work, and maybe you're a guy who trains after work, and sometimes you just don't want to go.
Mm-hmm.
But they do. They force themselves to go, and they put in their workout, and, you feel a lot better afterwards. You got to realize that if you'll go and do the work, you're going to feel a lot better.
Yeah.
And, of course, there are people who work out in the mornings, and that's good too, but I was never a morning guy.
You're never going to regret not going.
Exactly.
When you're done.
Yeah.
At the end of it, never.
No. So, and that knowledge of knowing that is what keeps you going.
Do you still work out today?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still go to the gym. I go to the 24-hour gym there on Foothill
Nice.
in Slow. And there's a lot of college kids, guys from our high school that work out there. So
Oh, really?
yeah, I get to see a lot of guys there all the time. So
You get the bug and just never goes away.
It's
like coaching.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's just like coaching. But, you learn when you get to be my age. I'm 71. You can't lift as much anymore, but that's not required.
Right.
Just lift what you can, try to stay, in best shape you can. And that's just the way it goes. But don't stop going.
Right.
Keep going. Ride that bike. Do what you do on that.
You either use it or lose it.
That's right. Just keep it going.
You're not a stranger to injuries,
No.
right? 2 knee replacements. Anything else?
My left ankle,
Left ankle.
my left shoulder
Yeah.
has a steel ball in there.
Okay.
My lower back, I've had work done on that, so they fused that. What else? Both of my wrists, several fingers, different things like that. But actually, when you look at it and you compare me to other people in their career, I'm probably lucky.
Yeah.
Because I'm still walking around okay.
Yeah.
I'm not great, but pretty good.
Yeah.
What advice would you give a competitor or an athlete that goes through injuries?
Don't rush it. Give yourself time to recover. I know that with young guys, they get an injury or an ankle or something like that, and they want to come back and play right away. I probably would not have had the ankle replaced. I got a star ankle replacement on my left ankle. It's all metal now, but doesn't hurt anymore. But if I would have, it was my junior year. It happened up at we were playing University of Washington, and I batted a ball in the air on the goal line, and Butch Wicks caught it, and boy, we were off to the races. And some big lineman came up from behind me and fell on my leg as I was running, and really messed my ankle up. And I went in at halftime, and we retaped it and did a few other things so I could finish playing. And I probably should have said, that's it. But I don't know how you do that when you're playing. You know, you're competitive, the juices are flowing. And then I went back and played. I didn't miss a game because of it. But it probably would have been better if I didn't. And I think today, especially as you watch guys like LeBron James, you know, as he's getting older, he's very conscious of that. LeBron gets an injury, he's not going to be rushed. He's going to take his time. He knows, you know, just like listening to Kobe Bryant on some of his stuff that he left us, the gifts he left us with, talks and podcasts and stuff.
Right.
Kobe talks about that, especially with Kobe. I mean, he had a couple of serious injuries.
Achilles.
He had to come back from. And the biggest thing was being patient. You know, don't rush it. And, you know, do what you're supposed to do your training, but don't get in a big hurry. And then it should, you know, things will get better. They'll recover. You'll repair, especially in young guys.
Yeah.
The older you get, the worse it is. But
gotta be a little smarter about how you train and how you do things.
Yeah. So I think that would be the answer I'd give on that. So.
Yeah. I mean, and playing linebacker, linebacker, lineman, running backs are probably the three most physical positions because you're involved in hits almost every single play.
Every play.
Especially linebacker coming from a distance and coming up and hitting.
Yeah, probably the collision guys on the team would be DBs, cornerbacks, safeties, strong safety especially.
Yeah.
And inside backers.
Right.
They're collision guys.
Yeah. High speed.
And most of the time when you watch the strong safeties or corners tackle, they're tackling down low.
Yeah.
They're not really hitting people in the chest or up around the chest area. When you're colliding with linemen and then having to get rid of that guy and then boom, right into a running back that is going full speed at 230 pounds. It gets a little tough.
Yeah. Then you get inside. I mean, that's where guys falling on each other and falling on knees. You get a lot of injuries inside the inside seven.
Right. Especially linemen. That's why they started wearing those braces.
Yeah.
You know, when I was a high school coach at Delano, we first started putting them on our high school linemen.
Oh, really?
It cut down on injuries so much, just having those braces.
Yeah, you're limited already in the high school level, so you need your guys all the time. You know.
Yeah, I never they've been working on developing a better helmet for years and years and years, and for reasons we know why, but they never really came up with like ankle braces and knee braces until later. And now you see them worn all the time at the high school level, especially. It wasn't being done. College, it started happening. Pros, of course, did, but it trickled down. It's kind of a trickle-down thing.
Yeah.
You know? But the high schools now are protecting those linemen with the braces and stuff, which is good.
Yeah. Yeah. You've had a lot of success in your own personal career. You've also had a lot of success in your coaching career as well.
Yeah, it's
a lot.
God's been good.
Yeah, most definitely. What would you say is your most proudest moment of your coaching career? If you could narrow it down, or a couple of them, so to say.
The last 2 years I coached in the Delano district at Robert F. Kennedy was probably the most fulfilling and rewarding. Working with a guy like Dennis Moody, what a great guy. And Dennis, now he's up. We were talking about Dennis earlier. Yeah. He's up in Washington, Spokane area, I believe. And he's coaching up there, doing a great job. He's a wing T guy, so he runs a really nice offense. But Dennis knows how to throw the ball too. That was Dennis's big plus. He was not only a great run coach for the run, but he knew how to throw the ball and to set things up. He could set things up like you wouldn't believe. Great, player. Yeah, he's a great high school coach. But working with Dennis, all the long talks we had together, and sharing information and thoughts on what we might see and what people might try to do against us and what we needed to do to them. And what I loved was going in at halftime, and like one year we were playing Avenal for a Valley Championship. And they were running this little bounce play, and it was based on our alignment. And I remember going in and telling Mario Mion now is the head coach at Kennedy. Great guy, just tremendous ability as a coach and administrator, and his football knowledge, tremendous. He knows a lot of football. Well, I remember going in and talking to Mario, and I go, Mario, that's not something that's just happening on the spur. They're planning this. They're bouncing it on purpose. And he goes, what do we do? And I go, just move the defensive end to a 5 technique. Let's get him out of that 4. Instead of inside in the B gap, let's put him in a C gap. Say, okay, run in the B gap. We got a linebacker in there. We got 2 linebackers. So they gain 4 or 5 yards. They're not going to be breaking it off for 50.
Yeah.
And we made a simple adjustment on technique with our linemen. We put them out over, and sure enough, shut it down in the second half. Those kind of things you remember. I remember that distinctly. I remember another time we were at Taft. I believe it was Taft. Yeah, no, Shafter. Excuse me, Shafter. We're playing Shafter, and this is when I was at Cesar Chavez, and Sergio Barajas was the head coach. Sergio, great guy, great young man. Sergio, they were killing us with the blitz, and they were doing that double A gap blitz that everybody talks about now that they do at the pro level, and at halftime we was just, guys, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And I go, Coach, can I do this one? And he goes, yeah. And I go, okay. So I stood the offensive lineup. I said, okay, guys, go toe to toe. Toe to toe. No splits. No splits. Toe to toe. So we went toe to toe and ran the same plays. And we come out beating the cack out of them in the second half. Just little
little adjustment.
One little adjustment.
One little.
You want to run that gap? Go ahead. There's nothing there. But we're going to run the same play. And I said, we may end up bouncing a little bit more, but I said, we'll tell our running back, just look for that. There's not going to be an inside bounce or cutback, but there'll be something outside.
Yeah.
Because they'll adjust.
Yeah.
They'll come down with us. We come down, they'll come down. And that's exactly what happened. So making those kind of things, I remember. Little adjustments.
Awesome. Yeah. I said it during Tim Vanny's podcast. Uh-huh. When we talk to people like you who've been around the game and done some incredible things, how you guys remember every single thing to the detail.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Just incredible.
Especially special things like that.
Yeah.
Little special things
That's
that
remarkable.
You remember. Well, we needed to win that game because Chavez had never been to a Valley playoff game. And they'd been around 9 years, I think. It was pretty new high school then, 8 or 9 years. And they'd never been to a Valley playoff. We needed to win that game to get a Valley playoff game, to go to the Valley playoffs. And we did, and we also ended up winning the first playoff game. So that was a milestone for that school.
That's awesome.
And then the next year, I think I moved on to Kennedy. So I was at Delano, Cesar Chavez, and then at Kennedy. So I was kind of like a doctor making house calls.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy, like, because you'll forget, like, the score of a game, even the outcome of a game, but you'll remember those little, small, minute details of, a second quarter adjustment that you made.
Exactly, yeah, and that's exactly what you do as a coach, and those are the things that get you through, too.
Right,
yeah.
Remember that adjustment and why you made it and how it worked, what was the response. So, yeah, I think if Shafter had been in the locker room with us at halftime, they wouldn't have continued to do what they were doing. But anyway, yeah, that's a great part of this game, football. Adjustments and stuff.
Steve, kind of going back, if you could kind of go back now, what you know now, to your younger self, like what advice would you give your younger self, knowing what you do now?
Oh, I've had people ask me that. You got all these injuries, and I know. I wouldn't change a thing. I mean, even if I knew ahead of time, one day you're going to have your left ankle replaced, or your knees are going to, you're going to have those done, or your shoulder, or whatever. I don't think I'd have changed a thing. I really don't. The game is the game, and like I said earlier, when you get bit by that bug, and you define the goal that you want at such a young age, like I did. It just becomes a relentless trail to follow, and you try not to let anything get in your way. And you can still have a life too. I mean, heck, I got married, had kids, and continued to play football. And it didn't slow us down in that aspect. And then when it was over, it was over. And that's another thing that you have to realize. There comes a time when it's over. Whatever you're doing in the professional level, especially football, when it's done, and you walk away, and no regrets. It is what it is. You accomplish what you accomplish. Be proud of that, and then enjoy the rest of your life. And I was able to do that. Some guys can't. Some guys, it doesn't happen that way for them. They keep hanging on, to the memory of. And I really didn't. I just, when it was time to put the pads down, I put them down. I said, it's time to go.
And I'm sure because you gave it your all. You gave it everything you had.
I knew
so
that.
there's no regrets.
Yeah. No regret. I had no regret. And
maybe ask for the weight set sooner.
There's a funny story about that. There was a coach in the early 60s from Southern California that had moved up to the Washington area like Dennis did. And we talked about this, joked about it. This guy started winning everything up there. He became a state champion and all these different things, and so he started becoming a clinic speaker. Yeah. Everybody wanted to hear what offense, what defense, and the guy goes to these clinics. He goes, I just ran a simple, veer offense, and defensively we were too deep, 4-man front. So, well, what was the secret? He said, weight room.
Weight room.
He said, weight room. Our guys were physically more fit and stronger than your guys, and then everybody got the bug.
Yeah. Boom, it's off to the races.
Yeah, then everybody started putting in weight rooms.
That's incredible.
Now, when they build a new high school or any other college facility, they first thing to build is a weight room, right?
Yeah. Well, now, that's what I train kids.
Yeah.
That's my niche right now.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I love it. I love when a kid comes to me and they're just looking for that next competitive edge, that next step. And it's amazing. And it goes back to everything we said. The science changed, the equipment's changed, everything's advanced.
The routines,
exactly.
The kind of stuff that you guys can teach now that we didn't take advantage of, just doing plyos and stuff.
Yeah, explosive
doing
training.
The ropes, explosive training, all that kind of thing. So, yeah, that's great stuff.
So do you still have that equipment at your house, or did that go with it?
Nope. Casey Schuler. When I moved back to Porterville, I was looking for a place to lift. And I ran into he became my weightlifting buddy for 30 years.
Okay.
And we were workout partners. And you know how important that is? And shoot, man, some days I'd get a phone call from Casey. Okay, you're going to be there at 5, right? Yeah. What are we going to do today? It's a leg day today. Okay. We were really close workout partners. So when I left everything with Casey. Nice. And he has it on his ranch now. And he's still training too.
That's cool.
Nice.
Yeah,
really
great
cool.
guy, Casey Schuler. What a character.
That's really cool.
So, Steve, you're living in San Luis Obispo today. So,
yes.
what do you? You're still coaching, obviously, but what are you spending your time doing today?
Well, that's a good question because when we first moved over there, I felt a little bit kind of like lost a little bit because I'd been so busy, coaching and teaching and stuff. So I decided I was going to do subbing.
Mm-hmm.
So I got signed up for that with the San Luis Coastal Unified School District, and I became a sub. And I started getting to know people around the area, and I met Coach Johnston. Pat Johnston's the head coach at San Luis High School. And I remember one day, I just wanted to go watch practice. So they were practicing up on the upper field where the baseball field is, because the lower field was being worked on. They're going through a huge remodel, which is done now, thank goodness. So I was sitting in the baseball bleachers, and I was just watching and seeing what was going on. And, of course, Pat, being inquisitive, he sees me over there, and I see him looking at me there, and it's, I go, I'm in trouble. And he comes walking over, hey, how you doing? What can I help you with anything? And I go, nah, Coach, I just wanted to watch practice. I'm a football madman, so I just wanted to see you guys. What was up? And he goes, really? And then we start talking, and then he goes, listen, when the season is over, why don't you come in? And the season was almost over. Why don't you come in and talk to me after Christmas, and let's see about, maybe you want to come back and coach some more. And this is, like the first year I was there. So
can't get away from it.
That didn't take long.
Yeah. So I went back and I was coaching special teams, and I've coached DBs, I've coached linebackers. The last year I was there, just before this crazy COVID thing hit, I was the head JV coach.
Mm-hmm.
And we ended up being 9-1. We lost our opener to Arroyo Grande, and Arroyo Grande's powerhouse over there on the coast. They beat us soundly, but then we won 9 in a row. So I don't know what happened, but we turned it around, and I think it's the best record the JVs have ever had.
No kidding.
Yeah. So
that's awesome.
That's the last team I coached, and then I've been working with PJ. Of course, everything went to Zoom meetings. And how do you coach football on Zoom meeting? I don't know how you do that. So I didn't get too deeply involved in that. But, yeah, this summer, we'll get back in the swing. And Robert Doherty, of course, became the new coach at Morro Bay. And Robert wants me to come coach with them. And I'm going to stick, I think, with San Luis High.
Yeah.
Stay with Pat. He's a great guy. You wouldn't meet a nicer guy.
That's awesome.
Pat Johnson, and super football knowledgeable. He was a assistant coach at Cal Poly before he took over the San Luis job. Yeah, he was a quarterback at Cal Poly when he played. So
it just won't leave you alone, huh, Steve?
No, I'm gonna keep doing it
right
as long as I can.
You've had some of your own kids that have had some major success in sports as well.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to parents that have kids that are athletes?
First thing I would advise as a parent, advising another parent, listen to your kids, talk to your kids, listen to them, and find out what it is that they're interested in. Like with Heather was a tremendous youth athlete.
Yeah.
And she was
phenomenal
as a 8-year-old, 9-year-old, 10-year-old. I mean, she was incredible. And then from there, she went on and she did some tremendous things in high school and even in college. I mean, she played at COS. She was a two-sport player at COS. She did basketball and volleyball and was the MVP both there. And then, she started off at Fresno Pacific, played at Hayward, came back to COS. Those programs didn't fit real well for her at that time, and then ended up going back to Fresno Pacific for the same coach, and had 2 really good last years there with them. But talk to your kids. Know what it is that they want to do. I know that with Brittany, it was always basketball, and Brittany wanted to be on a travel team, so we spent a lot of time traveling to L.A., different places when she was younger. She was on the NJB teams that did really well here from Porterville, and some other really good. Courtney Uphoff was a great basketball player.
Yeah.
There's been some other ones, but a lot of them. But that's what Brittany wanted to do. And then with Zach, it was Zach loved football, and Zach was a great athlete, big, fast, strong. We had taken him down to, of course, he played with Bear Pasco, and Mr. Pasco and I had taken Sean and I had taken the kids down to a USC one day and then a UCLA clinic. So Saturday went to UCLA, Sunday went to USC's, and both of them did really well, and they looked like, and Zach actually ended up getting an offer to play football at Boise State. They had come down, and they really wanted him to come there. But he surprised us all because he was 18 in September, his senior year, and Zach signed up to join the Army.
Yeah.
So he made his choices. Never doubted him.
You supported it?
I supported it totally. Now, my wife was a little different. She was ready to shoot somebody. But that's what mama bears do, protect their cubs. Yeah. But, I explained, Kathy, this is what he wants to do. And I said, and it's how we raised him. He's a patriot. We took him when he was a little bitty guy. We would take him to Fort Tejon, and we were part of a reenactment group up there, and we would reenact Civil Wars all summer long.
Wow.
And I go, we did that for years. What do you expect?
Yeah.
But anyway, just support your kids. Be very supportive of what they're trying to do, and try to give the advice when they ask for it.
Don't force anything.
I don't really. I don't volunteer anything. It's just if they ask me, I give them that advice. But, you got to trust them, and they have to make their own mistakes, and it's going to happen. Just be there to help, pick them up when something really goes down that's not great for them. But other than that, just listen to your kids. Listen to them, talk to them.
Grandkids are different, though. Huh?
Grandkids, great, because you can go play with them all you want, get them all revved up, and then you can go home.
That's it.
Go back to mom and dad.
All hyped up.
Yeah, I'm going home taking a nap. Yeah, grandkids are great. We have a few of those too.
Steve, what brings you the most joy today, and what continues giving you the purpose to continue excelling and driving forward?
That's a good question, because, man, as you get older, you it's tough. You got to get up every day and finding out, man, you got to push yourself. But I just finished a long-term sub thing at Morro Bay High School. It was a gig I had there. Their football coach, of course, had signed to go to his old alma mater down in Los Angeles. So he left and went back there. They hired a young boy to come in, and young man to come in and be the sub. I think it was the last 3 months of school year, 4 months. But anyway, he didn't last that long. So Scott called me up, he's a principal there, and said, gosh, could you help us out and take over this long-term sub? And I go, well, this is like on a Monday afternoon. Well, when do you need me? Tomorrow? So I didn't have a whole lot of time to think about it, but I took that on, and that was going back to school full time, and being in charge of giving the kids their finals, giving them grades and all that kind of stuff. That really kind of reinvigorated me. I like that, even though it was a challenge. I got to admit, from a physical standpoint, boy, at the end of the day, I was worn out. But
yeah,
being back there with those young kids, making friends with them, talking with the football players, and because a lot of them were like, what's this new coach like? I kept saying, hey, he's a great coach. You'll love him. He knows a lot about the passing game. You guys are going to be okay. Just, get through spring football, and I'm sure everything will be fine for you. So,
right.
I guess it's that, being in contact with those young folks and helping them kind of to see the way of which way to go and what to do. And
right.
When they ask questions, just be there to give them advice.
Being that mentor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what a teacher is. A teacher isn't somebody up here and the kids are down here. A teacher is someone there that meshes with the kids.
Absolutely.
It's just like, we had those kids come into my house during the summertime instead of having to go to different gyms, and we could all work out together.
Right.
And they probably regretted that, especially after they went up that hill a few times, right?
Oh, man.
But I'm sure that they look back on it and said that was the best thing we could have done.
Yeah.
Because they were ready to go.
Right.
So doing those kinds of things with the young people.
Building relationships.
Yeah, building those
That's what
bridges.
it's all about.
Yeah. Don't burn them, build them.
Right.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. So I would say that was probably the biggest delight, is just being around the young guys and seeing their success. And like today, at my age and everything, I have Facebook. I stay in touch with, you wouldn't believe the kids that I'm friends with on Facebook that are ex-players.
Yeah.
They're sending me pictures. Hey, this is what I'm doing now,
Check
Coach.
it out.
Look, Coach, we just had another baby. I got 3 kids now. I go, oh, man, that's great. Just watching that continue.
Yeah, that's winning,
success.
right?
Yeah.
That's winning right there.
Successful guys. They're all successful, doing a great job. A kid I had at Delano High School, real special player. He cornerback. I was looking for corners. Now this kid, Beto, hadn't played football since junior high. 6'3", long, lean arms, fast, strong as a bull, and I needed corners. And I got him to come out and play for me the last 2 years at cornerback. He was all league. Man, the kid could bench press like 300 pounds. I think he weighed like 180.
No kidding.
Yeah, he was so strong. That was
kidding.
always amazing how strong he was. But Beto became a welder. I encouraged him. I said, they got this great welding program at Bakersfield College. Once you leave here, go there, get your certificate, and you'll find a great job. Anyway, he was working on the pipeline. He would go, they'd go for shifts. They'd work 3 months, 90 days, and then come home for a month. And, he's doing great. And now I think he's back in the fields there in Bakersfield, Oildale. But I get stuff from Beto all the time.
Yeah.
He's getting married, got 3 kids, and he loves antique cars. Because he can do all the welding and stuff.
Right.
Yeah. So, anyway, those kind of relationship, that's success.
You became Cindy.
Yeah, yeah. Cindy does such a great job with her job, getting kids ready to move on. And there's such a need now today that not every kid is cut out to go to college.
Yeah.
They just aren't. And I don't know why we didn't accept that back when, but the education pendulum swings. I got this from an old friend years ago. It'll go from one end and it'll come all the way back. It may take a couple of years, but I think what they're doing now is preparing kids to get jobs right out of school, right out of high school, is the best thing what we've done in education for a long time. And I applaud that.
Yeah, go learn these trades by going and working a job, right?
Getting a pathway,
Yeah.
work that pathway, and it helps you make decisions too.
Right.
I thought I really liked that, but I guess I don't. And then so you try something else.
Right.
While you're still in school, while you're still in high school.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, so what Cindy does is really important.
Yeah.
So
Well,
they're lucky to have her. She's terrific.
Yeah. Speaking of Facebook, I've seen some videos of you singing
Oh,
with your daughter.
I thought I'd get
You
through this
know.
without that.
Hey, I think it's great. I think the duo is amazing.
Yeah.
Well, we started doing that because of COVID.
Okay.
You know, the three of us at home, and everybody was shut down. You know, was shut in, and my wife has always wanted us to sing together, so we started singing together, and then it grew and it grew and it grew, and it finally got to the point where you guys, my wife Kathy, who's I wish your heart makes promoter herself, but Kathy says, you need to go and sing for some of the people in retirement homes. There's
nice.
a place called the Villages over there in San Luis.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a retirement place. So she kept calling, and finally the lady said, okay, we got this date. So we've been going there for the last year and a half, 2 years, certain times of the month, and we sing for the people there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's
and
amazing.
It's the genre that we cover is kind of an old fashioned genre anyway. It's not.
I like it.
Yeah, it's different, but they love it.
Yeah.
So and it's really good for them. The older folks, and it's great to see the smiles on their face and to talk with them before and after, and again, it's giving service back, to your fellow human beings, putting a smile on their face. So,
Right.
And you've been doing that your whole life, being of service, right? Educator and coach, and
I never thought I'd be singing duets with my daughter Ashley, but I guess
Here we are.
here we are.
continues giving. Love
Just
it.
continue going. Yeah, once that stops, I think I don't know what there is after that.
And we don't want to know.
Yeah,
Just keep
I just
helping.
want to keep
Yeah.
going.
Keep going.
It's just all what you guys are trying to build here. Get this thing going, man. Get the kids fired up, and help them as much as you can to achieve the goals they want to achieve.
Yeah.
That's important.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah, it's what it's all about.
Bringing individuals like you on the show, they get excited for it. They get excited. Oh, we're bringing Steve Brown in. He's at this, and they're like, he's from Porterville? Yeah, he's from Porterville.
Yeah, believe it or not.
Believe it or not, he's from Porterville.
Yeah.
I was hoping Jeff would be here today, but you guys will get him on.
Yeah.
You got to get a hold of Jeff because I think Jeff's the most amazing athlete, even though he's my brother, that I ever saw. I mean, in college, the guy was, he was an MVP varsity football player for the Trojans, All-Pac 8 or All-Pac 10 back then. He was MVP on his baseball team. He played with guys like Mark McGuire.
Yeah.
Jack Del Rio.
Yeah.
I mean, all these guys that
Powerhouses, yeah.
yeah, and he was the guy. He was the leader, the captain. He's just an amazing guy.
Yeah, we're most definitely
looking
gonna try
forward
to
to
get
it.
him on.
Yeah,
here. Without
he's
a
funny
doubt.
too.
Well, thanks, Steve, for taking the time to be with us today.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Greatly
I
appreciated.
This was fun.
Appreciate you guys doing it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Keep doing it. This is good stuff. Like
Yeah,
you
we're
said.
having fun. Yeah.
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 All
Especially when we get to talk to these amazing people like you, and you've been such an inspiration, not just for us, but for so many people.
Well,
and
I'm
And it
really
continues. And
it
it's going to
continues
grateful for
giving,
that.
right?
grateful
The
for
gift that continues giving.
That's what God put us here for.
Absolutely.
to do.
Absolutely.
So,
We really appreciate you making the time.
yeah, no problem. Glad to be here, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right.